Welcome back. I'm really pleased to be able to share with you one of the best films from one of my favourite directors. A very funny film, beautifully shot in black and white, with some of the biggest stars of the day. It is Some Like It Hot from 1959. Writer-director Billy Wilder and his frequent collaborator I.A.L. Diamond adapted the script for this film from a screenplay for the 1951 German film Fanfare of Love, which was itself a remake of the 1935 French film of the same name. Initially the script was set in contemporary times, but Diamond suggested that a period setting would make it easier for the audience to accept female impersonation. And then Wilder came up with the idea to set the story during the Jazz Age and have their characters witness a gangland slaying as motivation for hiding out. The film's working title was Not Tonight, Josephine. Casting and how all the characters play with each other and play off each other is the critical element that makes this film work so well. Before finalising casting, Anthony Perkins, Frank Sinatra, Jerry Lewis and Danny Kaye were all considered for Jerry or Daphne, the role that finally went to Jack Lemmon. Bob Hope was considered for Joe or Josephine, the role that finally went to Tony Curtis. Curtis had been spotted by Billy Wilder and thought he would be perfect for the role because, in Wilder's words, he was quite handsome, and when he tells Marilyn that he's one of the Shell Oil family, she has to be able to believe him. Mitzi Gaynor was considered for the role of Sugarcane Kowalczyk until Marilyn Monroe became available. Marilyn originally didn't want to play Sugar, saying, "I don't want to play someone who can't tell Daphne and Josephine are really men dressed in drag." Mitzi was retained though on standby in the event that anything happened to Marilyn. George Raft, who plays Spats Colombo, made his name in Hollywood in the 1930s in numerous tough guy roles, often as a gangster or an ex-con. The role was something of a parody of his tough guy image and was the first A picture he'd been offered in many years. Joey Brown was a show business journeyman, having started out in the circus before moving into comedy in vaudeville and then into films in the 1920s and 1930s. By the late 50s, his career was practically dead in the water, until this role introduced him to a new generation of film fans. The studio hired male cabaret dancer Barbette to teach Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon to walk in heels. Lemmon soon declined the help, saying that he didn't want to walk like a woman, but a man trying to walk like a woman. When Curtis and Lemmon first put on the female makeup and costumes, they walked around the Goldwyn Studios lot to see if they could pass as women. They also tried using mirrors in women's powder rooms to fix their makeup, and when no one complained, they knew they could be convincing. It's interesting that this film was shot in black and white. Wilder had shot The 7-Year Itch in colour 4 years earlier with Marilyn, plus Monroe's contract stipulated that her films were to be shot in colour. Wilder went as far as shooting screen tests in colour, which he described as making Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis look unacceptably grotesque when dressed in drag. Marilyn also saw the screen tests, describing Curtis and Lemmon's makeup as giving them a ghoulish appearance. As a result, both Wilder and Monroe agreed that the film should be shot in black and white, a form that Wilder was very familiar with, having already shot very many beautiful films in that particular format. Marilyn had a reputation for creating on-set drama due to her anxieties, and those anxieties often became worse when she was treated poorly by cast and crew. On this film, she was constantly late to set and frequently could not memorise her lines, averaging 35 to 40 takes for even part of a scene. Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon didn't help. They cruelly made bets during filming on how many takes Marilyn would need to get it right. Adding to Marilyn's issues, her acting coach Paula Strasberg and her husband Arthur Miller both tried to influence the production, which Wilder and other crew members found annoying. This caused Wilder so much stress that he reportedly had to take sedatives in order to sleep. Tony Curtis hated that his own performance deteriorated over the numerous takes often needed to get a good scene out of Monroe. As a result, Billy Wilder ended up having to use more footage of Marilyn than of him. Marilyn could also be incredibly good. 3 days was scheduled for shooting the scene with Shell Jr. and Sugar at the beach. Monroe had many complicated lines, and they could only shoot for short periods due to jets regularly taking off from the nearby Air Force Base. To everyone's surprise, she nailed everything the first time, and the scene was finished in only 20 minutes. Some Like It Hot received widespread acclaim from critics and is considered amongst the best films of all time. Roger Ebert wrote, "Wilder's 1959 comedy is one of the enduring treasures of the movies, a film of inspiration and meticulous craft." John McCartan of The New Yorker referred to the film as a jolly, carefree enterprise. Richard Roud, writing for The Guardian in 1967, said that with this film, Wilder comes close to perfection. Perhaps the harshest critics of the period were the Roman Catholic Church's Legion of Decency, but that body gave the film its less critical rating of morally objectionable. Preview screenings have long been used to test a film before its release. The first sneak preview of this film had a bad reaction, with many of the audience walking out. Studio executives and agents were concerned, but Wilder was not. He insisted, "This is a very funny movie and I believe in it just as it is. Maybe this is the wrong neighbourhood. I don't panic over one preview. It's a hell of a movie." The next preview had the audience standing and cheering, which led to the one change that Wilder did make. Preview audiences often laughed so hard after Daphne's announcement of her engagement to Osgood that a lot of the dialogue was missed. It was reshot with pauses and with the maraca gimmick to allow time for this. After shooting was completed, Billy Wilder threw a celebration dinner at his home for cast members and friends. Marilyn was not invited, which crushed her, despite being told that her delays and her unprofessional behaviour had cost the production roughly $500,000. Wilder said generally unkind things about her after the film, at one point driving her to call his home and leave a message with Wilder's wife for Billy to go fuck himself. Wilder changed his tune later, commenting, "It takes a real artist to come onto the set and to not know her lines and yet give the performance that she did." A year later, at the premiere of Wilder's film The Apartment, Munro threw her arms around him, told him how much she loved the picture, and whispered that she would love to play the lead in Irma la Douce, a film that was scheduled for 1963, a role that eventually went to Shirley MacLaine. On its release, the state of Kansas banned the film from being shown in the state, explaining that cross-dressing was too disturbing for Kansans. The film opened in March 1959 to big audiences across several cities in the United States and ultimately grossed $25 million. As of 2020, it grossed over $83.2 million internationally. It won a long list of awards that included an Oscar, a Golden Globe, a BAFTA, multiple Laurel Awards, among other gongs. Billy Wilder was nominated for a Golden Lion at the Venice Film Festival. In 1989, this film became one of the first 25 inducted into the United States National Film Registry. In July 2018, it was selected to be screened in the Venice Classic section of the 75th Venice International Film Festival. It was voted the best comedy of all time in a poll of 253 film critics from 52 countries, conducted by the BBC in 2017. It was voted the American Film Institute's funniest movie of all time, as well as making their list of the greatest American movies. The film was included in Roger Ebert's Greatest Movies list. It is among the 1001 movies you must see before you die. Premiere Film Magazine lists it as one of the 50 greatest comedies of all time, and the film's closing line, "Well, nobody's perfect," was subsequently voted one of the greatest movie quotes by the American Film Institute. So lots of good reasons to watch this film. Anything that Marilyn Monroe is in is certainly worth watching, and her on-screen time is really captivating. But she's not the best thing about this particular film. It's really Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon. They play off each other beautifully. They're not convincing as women, which really adds to the comedy. But also, the direction of Billy Wilder. He was a great writer. He was a great filmmaker. And this is probably him at the peak of his skills, or close to. Beautifully shot in black and white, so wonderful to look at. And as I said, as a writer, Billy Wilder was sharp and witty, and this film has all of those particular elements. I think it's a film you really love. It's a film I love. It's a film many, many people love. Even if you've seen it before, what I'd encourage you to do is go to our website, find our virtual screenings page, go to the link, click on the link to this particular film and watch it. And when you have done, come back, let us know what you think. Let us know whether you'd recommend it for other people. And then we'll be back again in the not too distant future for another Classic Films review. Catch you next time.